Welcome to my monastic cell, where I did not write Shirt of Flame, but I revised it. And I'm also making my own video trailer, so bear with me. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out Shirt of Flame. The title, just so you know, comes from T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets. And the book was not originally my idea. I was approached by Paraclete Press, the publisher, a few years ago, and they wanted to know if I would be interested in writing a book about sort of walking with a saint for a year, praying with, reflecting upon, etc. And I said, sure, and I chose Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. Partly, I knew something about her. I had certainly read her autobiography, Story of a Soul, probably a couple of times, although, as I saw afterward, not all that deeply. And I really had barely scratched the surface. But I was drawn to her, and I was also drawn to her because outwardly, we could not possibly have led more different lives. She, as you may or may not know, lived from 1873 to 1897. So first of all, we come from very different eras and cultures. She was a cradle Catholic, she came from a very religious family, all 5 sisters, they all became nuns. I was raised in the coast of New Hampshire, and very lovely, decent, church-going family, but not Catholic. I'm a convert. She so knew that her vocation was to be a nun that she went at the age of 14 and appealed to the Pope himself for permission to enter this very austere Carmelite convent at the age of 15. She wanted to enter early. She was so sure of her vocation, and actually managed to cajole her way in. She entered the convent at the age of 15, which was quite young. I think the minimum age at the time was 19, if not 21. I, at the age of 15, was drinking already and looking for a guy, I'm sure. Thérèse was a lifelong virgin, and my life was really for a long time in the bars, and so I had a very different experience. And my background was a bit more checkered than Thérèse's. So, and she also entered the convent and stayed there, the cloister, until the day she died. She died very young at the age of 24 of TB. And I live in the world. I've always lived in the world. And in fact, the year I spent with Thérèse, I lived in a section of LA. I've lived in LA for 20 years, but I lived in a particular section called Koreatown, which is sort of uber LA. It's very noisy and crowded, and there's gangs and graffiti and every kind of food, and very, very colorful. So a little bit different than the cloister at Carmel, in other words. So lots of differences, but I also, as soon as I started my walk with her, saw how much we had in common. And one of the things that really compels me about Thérèse is that she was a contemplative. She was a mystic. And the German theologian Karl Rahner, I love this quote of his, he said, "The Christian of the future will be a mystic, or he will not be a Christian at all." And I really believe that the people of prayer, the people who ponder and reflect upon and lead this kind of hidden, anonymous, inward life with Christ at the center they're just of incalculable value. I really believe those people sort of hold the world together and are going to somehow, in the end, save the world. And Thérèse was one of them. She burned with love for Christ, and she consented in the convent to. She took upon herself a life that was completely hidden away from the world and anonymous. Another thing that really drew me to her or another thing we had in common was she had the over-emoting heart, the heart that it sort of over-attaches, yearns perhaps a bit too deeply, or attaches, I should say, to the wrong thing, has a tendency to attach to, say, a person. And she herself, though obviously celibate all her life, said, if not for the mercy of God, I would have gone the way of Mary Magdalene. And she realized at some point that the danger for her was becoming emotionally promiscuous. And so that was really her spiritual path, was the way that her spirituality developed. The movement of it was kind of this movement from immature love, the love that is possessive, the love that is morbidly sensitive, the love that makes a show of itself in one way or another, to this other kind of love that burns even way stronger than the immature kind of love, but inwardly, that does not need to be noticed, that does not need to be recognized. And that is, I myself have always had a lifelong pattern of sort of romantic obsession. I mean, that is really sort of my central, I don't know if dilemma is the word, but that's certainly one major way, my own. I mean, in a way, alcoholism is this burning desire for love, for God, that gets misguided, that goes awry. So I realized at some point, as I was writing the book, oh, this is not about the book, or not about the book alone. It's about the fact that I really needed to find Saint Thérèse and walk with her, take this walk with her for my own sort of spiritual development. She's just sublime. She's so paradoxical in so many ways. This sort of outwardly mild. Her nickname is the Little Flower. The way of spirituality that she developed is called the Little Way. But the Little Way, as all authentic love, Christ himself being the prime example, nailed to a cross, really requires the heart of a warrior, and she had it. I'm very inspired by her life that received no recognition at all in the convent, from the world, obviously, but even within the convent. After she died, and she was made a saint very quickly, and the other nuns in the convent said, what, she's a saint? If she's a saint, everyone is a saint. That she didn't distinguish herself, in other words, in any way. She wasn't a scholar, she wasn't a theologian. She looked into her heart, she studied her experiences through the lens of Christ. She read the Gospels deeply. She participated in the sacraments, all of which are available to all of us. And she came to this very, very authentic way of living out the Gospels. And I was thinking the other day how I'm very touched by and moved by ballet dancers, their obsessive focus and their willingness to sacrifice and go through physical pain, as well as emotional, spiritual, and artistic and creative pain, and how Thérèse was in a way a ballet dancer, even though she didn't dance. She was like a ballet dancer who stands on point her entire life, on point, bearing this incredible tension of wanting to give and receive everything, and consenting to bear that inside herself and to radiate it to the very unpleasant people around her, often very unpleasant, I should say. And this is our life. This is everybody's life. We all live in a cloister in a way. So she stood on point, playing to an empty house, in a sense, to a house in which she could not see the audience. She never heard the applause. She didn't get the bouquet of roses thrown to her in her lifetime. And I think there's something beautiful about that, because it shows us that all love, all hard work, all sacrifice, it does bear fruit. It bears fruit, and it just goes toward the eternal building of the kingdom, whether or not we ever see the fruits of it, which we usually don't. So we're all called to be saints. We're all called to sort of radiate our own unique kind of love. And I just think Thérèse is a light on that path. And so even now I've barely scratched the surface of the riches. And so I hope you discover her too. And read my book about my wacky, wonderful, pain-filled, joy-filled year with her. Okay, thank you.